Autism is right now the most common developmental disorder of childhood. It's called a developmental disorder because it's a problem with the developing brain. And autism has three main features. The first is an impairment in communication, and we communicate in three different ways. We communicate by speaking, we communicate by understanding when someone speaks, and we communicate by using gestures. And children with autism can have impairment in all three. They may not speak when they should, saying dad or mama at 1 year, or putting two words together by 18 months, or using 3 words by 2 years, a 3-word sentence. Or they may begin to speak normally and then suddenly stop speaking. The other aspect is gesturing. Children tend to point. They point because their understanding of words is more advanced than their language. So they point to get their needs met, or they point to show, mommy, look. Children with autism tend not to use many gestures, how we use our hands in Jamaica a lot.
I'm the mother of a 4-year-old autistic son. Recently diagnosed 7 months ago. And once we brought him into daycare, his interaction with the kids were a little bit slow, so it was actually his daycare that mentioned to me that it didn't seem normal. It's a very challenging situation because once you probably get that news, if you want to say get that news, it's something that gives you a mindset that you will have to adopt in terms of how you will have to deal with him from that point forward. It's something that sometimes is not readily acceptable.
From the moment I found out when he was diagnosed as being autistic, the only thing I could do was started crying. Initially nerve-wracking, never thought about it, don't know anybody with it, didn't know what it was, didn't know what it meant. So instinctively you go to the internet and you do a lot of research, and most persons will tell you it's the worst thing to do because depending on the perspective you get, it can seem like a death sentence.
Autism is not a death sentence. It's just a different way of life, and you might have pictured your journey with your child to go from point A to B, a straight road, but you will have to take a different route with autism. You might have to turn left, then right, then right, then left, but you will get there. After talking to people, going to therapy with him, seeing that there are different kids on the spectrum, some are worse off than others, but that there are kids that have lived with it, you kind of go, okay, there's a way to manage it. A very expensive way, might I add, but you try and balance it as best as you can for the child, and then the rest is just what happens over time. It will bring you points of sometimes depression. It will bring you points of joy, or sometimes when you see things happening in even small increments that you can say something positive is happening.
Autism is a spectrum disorder. So some children might have features, lots of features. Some children might have few features. Some children might have more severe presentation of their features. Some children might have mild presentation. So each child is their own individual person, and the symptoms they present, while there's a core of symptoms that we need to make the diagnosis, the way they manifest in one child may be quite different from the way they manifest in another child.
I realized that it's not a bad thing after being educated on autism. And my son, I'm happy, he's on the high end of the spectrum. My son was diagnosed when he was 3 years old. That's a long time ago. I saw the need for the support because I didn't have anybody to turn to. The resources were limited. So a friend of mine and I, who also has a child with autism, we decided to start a support group.
JASA is a godsend because in Jamaica we do not have many agencies like this who really go out of its way to really ensure that children like these are being catered for. First of all, I didn't know they existed. Again, to show you how limited information I had on autism. So even when I found out he was autistic, I didn't know there was an association, if you will, that you could go to. It was through his therapy that I heard about them, and
The first event I attended was actually a surfing event, which was absolutely amazing because my child at the time was scared of water and pool. So to actually have him in an environment where you had adults that, one, understood the fears of the child, two, were willing to put up with that level of screaming and crying just to get them accustomed to the water. And then three, to be our own parents that had kids with similar challenges, it was good. And then in coming to the association, again, it gave me a different perspective. My son is 4 years. I had no idea what his life will look like when he's 10 or 12, but to see other parents who've gone through it and they have 15-year-olds, you go, okay, so it's possible, challenging, but possible.
I love it. I really love it. They find all these innovative ways of educating persons who need the support. They help you and they actually guide you and say, listen, we all know your child is different. It's okay, you can come here when your children are here, when they have different events and your children are present. Nobody is feeling like they're left out or they're being stigmatized or anything. Everybody is just normal.
Well, they're doing great things. They've built up so much awareness for individuals with autism, not only providing advocacy for the individuals themselves, but support for their family. I've known of kids who have never been able to go see a dentist, and JASA and Kathy they have created this, they do it I think annually, where they have the dental students and the clinics, and they're very patient with the kids, and kids are now able to go and get their teeth cleaned because some of these kids have highly sensory profiles, whether it's the noise that bothers them or maybe they're highly sensitive to things being in their mouth, you know, because some of our kids don't even eat solid foods and things like that. So something as simple as going to the dentist that we may take for granted, it can be a very hard thing, not just for the individual with autism, but their family. A
lot of parents just do not know sometimes how to just address some issues that really, they will always have to face with children that are autistic. So JASA is doing a good job. Like presently, they're doing a small feature on when the children reach adulthood. Sexuality, how they relate to that.
I think with individuals with autism, people don't think of them as sexual beings, and sexuality is something intrinsic. No one is born without sexuality. We tend to believe or want individuals with autism or intellectual disabilities not to act on sexual feelings because not necessarily that they can't manage it, but typically developing people don't know how to manage seeing it. People, families, parents, we need to know what our biases are and how to feel comfortable with it so that we can give our children a meaningful and full life. You know, it's quality of life, basically.
This is a support group that helps you to help yourself.
It's really amazing what they're doing.
It's a journey that I'm now enjoying, actually, because he teaches me something new about his world, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm happy the way he is right now.